A crucial piece of Chapter 9 discussing personal identity is the concept of self-disclosure, and it's important enough that I've set it aside as a separate lecture because there's quite a bit to carry on here. I'll go over. And so self-disclosure is the idea of telling someone something important that they don't already know about you. Right? So this is something personal, something that affects your life. Self-disclosure is a very vulnerable position to be in, but it's important because it increases your closeness as you develop relationships. And so actually as relationships go over time, we tend to self-disclose less, and that's because the person already knows these things about us. We do a lot of self-disclosure early on in order to form connections with people. But this is a vulnerable position to be in because you're giving someone power over you because this is information that not everybody knows. And often a lot of people don't know it because it's sensitive information. So for examples, your embarrassing moments, your guilty pleasures, the family problems you have, abuse you've experienced or witnessed, thoughts of violence or suicide, sexuality, and some of these are very crucial self-disclosures both to make and to receive, which is one of the reasons we take some time to talk about them. And so I have an example here, a quick clip of Michael Sam. For those of you who don't know, a few years ago he was a star player for Mizzou, the University of Missouri, and after the season ended, right before he went into the draft, he made a public statement coming out as gay. And this was a big deal because he was risking any potential for being drafted in the NFL, because if he were drafted, then he would be the first openly gay NFL player. That's not to argue he would be the only gay NFL player, but the first openly gay player. So he made his self-disclosure in a very different way than a lot of people do, which is in a very public forum.
I'm Michael Sam. I'm a football player and I'm gay. I came out to my team this last August, and coming out to them, they rallied around me. They supported me. I was kind of nervous. I was like, man, I'm actually doing it, but saying it and just how everyone's reaction was so like awesome, and I just like these are my teammates. These are my brothers. I can play for these guys.
That's his third three-sack game.
I was first team unanimous All-American. I was SEC Defensive Player of the Year. And just showing that an openly gay person on the team can have that much success with his teammates, there's a lot of opportunity for everyone. I'm coming out because I want to own my truth. 2 weeks ago at the Senior Bowl, I didn't realize that how many people actually knew about my sexual orientation. So I just want to own my truth before anyone breaks a story about me. Is this a huge deal? I understand that it is, but my purpose and focus right now is playing football. I don't think I should be defined as Michael Sam, the gay athlete, the gay football player. I want to be defined Michael Sam for being a great person and have great character. You know, I probably may be the first, but I won't be the last. And I think only good things is going to come from this.
So Michael Sam was drafted. He ended up not making a final team, but it's important to note that his is a very different form of coming out than a lot of folks. He mentioned that he told his team, he talked to his family beforehand. This was just the public coming out for the New York Times, and because he knew that he was becoming such a social figure over the coming weeks and months. Unfortunately, there are a lot of folks who do not have the positive response that he did, and we have very, very high rates of suicide and violence, suicide by and violence against members of the LGBT community who do come out. So this is one of the reasons we discuss this. With self-disclosures, there's a few ways that we think about this, and it's often referred to as peeling the onion because there's different layers to it. And so we refer to both breadth and depth. And breadth is how wide something is. So this is the number of topics you're going to cover, right? So the idea of how many different types of things you're going to talk about. Depth is how intense are you going to get about it, right? So depth of, so So breadth, it refers here to slices of a pizza, right? So how far around the pizza are you going to go? Depth of penetration refers to layers of an onion. How far into the onion are you going to go? And you can see off to the right there's various levels, right? There's that superficial level on the outside. Probably a lot of folks know that stuff. Intimate, those friends you start to form. Personal, very, very good friends. And those core beliefs and interests with a lot of folks. There are various rules of appropriate self-disclosure. One is timing and context. So what's the situation, right? Is this the right time and place to be doing this? What's your relationship with the person? Is this something that they should know about you that's going to negatively affect your relationship? How much do you tell a person at a time? You definitely don't want to overwhelm someone. You give them bits and pieces. Right? Unloading everything really makes for a difficult conversation, and it makes it difficult for folks to process. And you also have to consider is what am I telling this person? Is it fair for them to know? Is this putting them in an unethical situation? Right? So, rules of appropriate self-disclosure. Again, we've talked about relationship rules. This is where this comes in, right? And people self-disclose in all sorts of ways that make others uncomfortable, that we find funny. Whenever you're feeling that discomfort or that humor, it's usually because someone's broken these social rules, as we call them. So, is this the time and place? Is this the right person to be telling? How much do I tell them at a time? And is it fair to tell them this, or is this putting them in a bad spot? And crucial here is to think about how do you respond to self-disclosures. So, you should practice effective and active listening skills, as we've talked about. You should support and reinforce the disclosure, as we've talked about. A really big one here is be willing to reciprocate. We talked about how self-disclosures make you feel vulnerable, and so this what we call the rule of reciprocation says if somebody tells you something important, something that's a very deep disclosure, then they're putting out a lot of themselves, and what they're hoping for is for you to help balance the scales again. So for instance, if someone says, I love you, for the first time, and your response is, thank you, that's not a reciprocation, right? That person's been left hanging and probably doesn't feel so great about the state of your relationship at this point. So that rule of reciprocation is an important one. Keeping disclosures confidential. So this is important when people are trying to test trust and trying to build trust among people. Some very important places this does not count. Anytime somebody is threatening self or other harm, then those disclosures need to be released, right? Those disclosures need to be told to someone in authority, ideally a counselor. There's a lot of resources on university campuses about who needs to be told if there are threats of self or other harm. And it's also crucial that disclosures are not used against individuals. I've mentioned earlier that the rates of violence against and suicide by LGBT community members is very high. And so I have here two websites for you. One is the It Gets Better project, and the whole purpose here is for people to record their stories and to tell kids, yes, this is hard, but it gets better. Yes, I debated suicide because my life was so terrible, because I came out. I was kicked out of my house. My parents disowned me. I was beaten. But it does get better, and life is better, and it's worth still living. Right? And I've also given you some resources about how to safely come out and to help to safely receive self-disclosures about it. And a great, very cute one that went viral is a kid received this note from his dad and posted it online as a thank you. And it was from the Facebook group Fuck Hate, which is an anti-LGBT group. And it reads, Nate, I overheard your phone conversation with Mike last night about your plans to come out to me. The only thing I need you to plan is to bring home OJ and Brad after class. We're out like you now. I've known you were gay since you were 6. I've loved you since you were born. P.S. Your mom and I think you and Mike make a cute couple. So what he's done is the dad has basically acknowledged the self-disclosure. He's acknowledged that it's a safe environment for his son Nate to come out. And as we move forward in a changing world, technology plays an important role here. So what we found is that how people present themselves and disclose changes based on the social presence, based on the medium. So for instance, blogs are not very media rich, but have high rates of self-presentation and self-disclosure. Places like Wikipedia, very low rates of self-disclosure. YouTube, in general, lower rates of self-disclosure. We obviously see some exceptions to that. Virtual game worlds, so lower self-disclosure, whereas virtual social worlds have higher self-disclosure. And then social networking sites kind of fall somewhere in the middle with high levels of self-presentation and self-disclosure and about medium levels of media richness. And so what that is how much do you spend your social presence there? How much do you present your social presence there? How many different ways can you present your social presence? But then how much information do you actually reveal on it? And as we talk about technology, coming out of Scientific American in 2008, when we talk about privacy, that's a big piece with the new technology. And so the author Esther Dyson reads, on the one hand, the erosion of privacy is unmistakable. Most Americans are online today, and most of us have probably had one or more, now how did they know that, experiences. On the other hand, new and compelling reasons have arisen for people to disclose private information. Personalized medicine is on the threshold of reality. Detailed and accurate health and genetic information from private medical histories, both to treat individuals and to analyze epidemiological statistics across populations, has enormous potential for enhancing the general social welfare. Many people take pleasure in sharing personal information with others on social networking sites. So what she's saying is, we're walking this fine line between here, all of my information is out there, and I'm a little bit concerned about why people know these things. But on the other hand, when we have masses of information, especially medical information out, that really helps us as a society try and figure out, she talks about epidemiological statistics, right? So disease and health related statistics across an entire population instead of just having to look at individuals. And she also points out that we disclose by degrees, right? So we disclose certain information to certain types of people. And I think this is a great example of what types of things you might reveal at different levels. So, right, he might tell the doctor, his wife, his friend, and his coworkers, right, they may know and he may tell them that he's dieting and exercising. Adding in that he's taking a hair growth drug, perhaps only his doctor, wife, and friend. Probably doesn't tell his coworkers that. And revealing something like he has a sexual dysfunction likely does not go beyond his wife and doctor, right? So we definitely change what we tell, who we tell it to, based on the intimacy of our relationship with that person.